Okay, let's get rolling. I call to order the policy committee, AMATS policy committee, November 19th. Roll call is Mr. Steele and Mr. Flynn from the assembly are here. Ms. Heil is here from DEC. Mr. Campbell is here from DOT. Mr. Berkowitz is not in attendance at this point. We'll, of course, make note if he shows up, and we'll listen to his excuse and carefully record it. In front of us, we have a draft agenda for today's meeting.
Move to approve.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. Does anybody have any corrections? Mr. Lyon, do we have anything else we need to do with this agenda?
No, sir.
Any comments from the committee? Seeing none, any objection? Agenda is approved, thank you. We have our minutes from our 22nd October meeting in front of us. I'll get there. Thank you.
Move to
Yeah.
approve.
Thank you.
As I wasn't here, I would prefer not to be the second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any changes, corrections, modifications noted?
Looks good to me.
Any objection to consent? Seeing none, that's approved. Mr. Ryan, I seem to have skipped over the public involvement announcement, which you so love to give, so I apologize for that oversight on my part.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Clearly.
All AMATS meetings are public meetings, and the public is invited to comment. If we have a business item, we'll have presentation by staff or a consultant. At that point, the committee will be invited to discuss the topic, and then the public will be invited to comment.
Thank you. Action items in front of us, we have a draft 2016-17 UPWP. Is that yours, Mr. Lyon, to lead us?
Yes, sir. So you had this up as an informational item at your last meeting, at your meeting that was about 15 minutes long. Probably a coincidence that Aaron and I weren't here, but anyway, you've had some look at this. We edited it based on comments received. They pretty much, as far as I know, were all just agency comments. We didn't hear any public comments, so those changes have been made. That document is before you. And as Jamie, I'm sure, mentioned, this is, and you're probably aware, this is a rapid format change from previous versions of it. So much more user-friendly, and I could go on and on about how much I like this new format, thanks to Jamie. So here it is before you today for final approval. And the technical committee did meet last week to recommend approval.
Thank you. Anyone from the public care to comment on this proposed action? Seeing none. Committee members, Mr. Steele, any comments?
Pretty colored page. No, it's fine. We looked at it last time. Took it home.
Excellent. Mr. Flynn?
First, I'd allow you to acknowledge the presence of the mayor, if you wanted to do that.
Arrival time approximately 1:34.
All right, we're ready to adjourn?
And not. And of course, Mr. Peterson as well. So I am actually sorry that I was not here last month. I was out of town. So I actually have a couple of things I'd like to go through on this. One, first I'd like to acknowledge and thank the group for including the Bernard Road corridor study. I'm sure that makes Mr. Steele happy.
It does. Now if we just have money for the project.
Details. So, the part that troubles me about this is the omission of any discussion of the highway-to-highway connection. And I recognize the Department of Transportation has essentially dropped that from their, from the tip and the STIP. But as we continue to allow the Kinnickarn Crossing to stumble over itself, and other projects in the corridor, we're not coming up with any sort of plan for how that area is going to be developed from a transportation or neighborhood perspective. And so its omission here is somewhat glaring to me. I don't know how to fix that today, and so I might be inclined to move to postpone this for a month, and ask the technical advisory committee to take a look at that, but I don't know the consequence of such a motion, so I'm not gonna make it yet until I get some response on that.
Okay, so you're asking then for Mr. Lyons' opinion on what would happen if we postpone this for a month? Is that what I'm
Yeah.
interpreting that comment to be? Mr. Lyon, you have a comment there?
Sure. I'll give you two answers. One is that that particular project and pretty much any other project has never been in this document. This document is for staff time for the planning activities that we're going to do. The specific projects, whether they're highway to highway, Knick Arm Crossing, Abbott Road reconstruction, Spinard Road reconstruction, those are in the TIP and the MTP, but they don't usually get included at this level. They never have before, except for in the case of the Spinard Road corridor study, because it's a specific corridor study that staff is going to be working on in conjunction with the consultant contract. So that's answer number one for why it's not included in this specifically. If we had a project that was highway to highway reconnaissance study that staff was going to be working on, we would include it here. The other thing in terms of the time frame is we need to, this document needs to be approved by the end of the year. And the approval process includes, first step being approval by the policy committee after recommendation by the TAC and all the public process that we did. Then it goes to DOT headquarters down in Juneau, and they make sure that they believe that it fits with all the federal requirements that they have. And then they send it on to FHWA and FTA, Federal Transit Administration, for final approval before the end of the year. And with both holidays being in there, the Christmas holiday and Thanksgiving as days off, time frame is really tight. So we did send advance copies of the draft to headquarters, DOT headquarters, FHWA and FTA, and they looked at it and they had some comments which we included in this, but the time frame is tight for getting approval.
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Steele?
Along that line, however, how would we go about bringing it back? What are the steps to get, to resurrect the highway-to-highway project as a project for consideration?
Well, I believe I'm not intimately familiar with the MTP, and perhaps somebody here is more familiar than I am, but I believe it's in there in a couple different
Still?
different conceptual areas. I believe there's the money in there identified for environmental work on it, and I believe there's also in the long-term section identified as a project as well. I think there's at least two places that exist in the MTP right now.
Specifically, in the short term, there's the environmental.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
So the appropriate things are in there, actually, it sounds like.
and then
They
are, and then we broke apart I broke apart the 36th to,
Yeah.
or the Benson to Airport Heights section into three parts and put it in the
Right.
long term.
Right. So I think it is covered in the document right now in terms of our ability to work on it at a project level. I think as Craig said, this reflects what the staff is going to be working on. The MTP reflects the projects that we're going to be working on. And so obviously staff would have some involvement in that, but it's not going to be their specific task. It's going to be a project team of some sort, handled through PM&E or through DOT's environmental group or whatever is going to be the lead on that activity when it gets to funding.
We resurrected last year in the form of a memo, some concerns with the bridge project. And so I'm glad that we did that. I really do think that we need to, the trouble is, that's a long-term project. I mean, anybody at any level is going to understand that. But that is the critical project for that junction, and it needs to be dealt with, whether it's painful or costly or whatever, so.
And I
hope we
think-
keep that in mind.
Just speaking conversationally here and perhaps not officially, totally, I just think there's concern right now at the state level in the price tag of the overall project.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think we have to come up, as responsible proponents of that corridor, we need to recognize that without a way to incrementalize some of that work, I just don't think it's got a chance of moving forward. I mean, when you see a $750 million price tag on something, people just kind of get a bone stuck in their throat and start coughing. People don't reach for their wallet and start handing out money with those kind of price tags. So we need to, I think it's absolutely a critical project for the future of this community. It's transportation. I don't have any problem with that at all. And I was a proponent of the original project and still am a proponent of the concept. But I think that responsibly, we have to find a way to get that into manageable bites so that we can chew them off one at a time. Not
We have on our agenda Tuesday night,
The assembly.
discussion about purchasing some property in that third and Carlick area, neck of the woods.
Great.
And the more activity that takes place in there, the less options you have. And I recognize, you're absolutely right, and nobody has it in their wallet to spend that kind of money, so.
Yeah. Okay. Any further comments from the assembly contingent on the
Well-
BWP?
I'll let it go, Mr. Chairman, but I just, I think we're hamstringing ourselves in that area by not making some decisions and keeping the staff from focusing on areas that I think we could really make some progress. So,
Okay. Do we know that? Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments on the UPWP in front of us?
No.
Ms. Heil?
I would just like to thank staff for the efforts that they've done. I had originally asked for some way to tie in the projects to our major planning documents, and these little colored icons that you figured out how to do are really cool. And so, thanks. I think that really helps really bring attention to what staff's working on and how it works, and ties into not only our long-term plan, but our current plan, and even what's federally required and what's in the SIP, what a SIP requirement is. So I think that this document right there is kind of like a roadmap to all the documents that AMATS is responsible for, and this is a very nice job. Good job, staff.
Thank you.
Want to get the public?
I thought I opened that up with that.
He gave it a shot.
Give him a shot, okay, just to make sure.
You think we need to give another one?
Well, I made that
You said
announcement,
something
and now it's so powerful.
Would anybody from the public care to comment yet again on the UPWP to satisfy Mr. Lyons?
I'll move to approve, that the AMATS Policy Committee approve the 2016 to 17 Unified Planning Work Program.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Any objection to consent? It's approved, thank you. We now have in front of us action item B, Citizens Advisory Committee memo. Mr. Lyon?
Yes, Mr. Chair, in the last several months, you have approved the creation of a Citizen Advisory Committee to take the place of what was previously done by our Municipal Planning and Zoning Commission. We laid out some parameters for what kind of makeup that committee would have. We put out a call for nominations for the 6 Assembly District seats, and we received about 30 applications for those seats. At least three people per district, which was nice, so we did have some choices. A few of the seats had 5 or 6, so we had a small staff group get together and come up with our recommendations. And what you see before you in the memo for those first 6 Assembly District seats are our suggestions for the makeup of that committee based on those 6 Assembly seats. The bottom 5 seats in the list are organizations that provided us with a name and for that designated slot. And so this is our collection of candidates there. You have their applications with you, and the TAC met last week and recommended approval of the 11 seats that we have. So we're looking for approval today so we can have set up a meeting probably in the first quarter, hopefully January timeframe to start the process. We'll be doing the MTP next year, and so it'll be a good for them to get in at the very start of the process of the MTP update. Happy to answer questions about how we picked what we picked and go from there.
Okay, let me ask the board quickly. Do you have the sense that you want to talk about these individually? Is there anybody here that wants to go through these person by person, or is the slate acceptable in a way that we can take it as one action? I guess I'm asking Mr. Flynn that question, since you seem to be raising your eyebrows in my line of inquiry.
I only know a couple.
It's almost like you don't trust me, Mr. Chairman.
Just trying to identify issues before they become big issues. Keep them the small issues.
I just invite anybody who's on this list to stand and introduce themselves, since
Okay.
I see at least one of
We
them.
will certainly do that, okay. I guess I'm going to propose right now that we take the whole candidate slate as one action item. We will certainly allow people to individually speak to their qualifications if they're in attendance and wish to do so. So let's move ahead with that idea that we're going to take the whole slate at one. Is anybody here from the public who wishes to comment on any of these candidates, or are there any of the candidates who wish to comment on their own qualifications or reasons for applying for this prestigious position? Yes, sir, in the front row.
My name is Jonathan Lang. I'm a professional land surveyor, and I'm also an adjunct professor at UAA, and I'm on there as representing District 5.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tolley?
John Tully. I'm on there representing District 1. Have a long history with AMATS. I'm retired now and do a lot of volunteer types of work, and saw that there were some interesting transportation issues coming up when I was reading the mayor's transition report, and so thought I would throw my hat in the ring and see if I could offer my services to be of help, and also knowing that the new Metropolitan Transportation Plan was going to be coming up, I thought that'd be a good time to have some interesting work and some probably some real issues to kind of dig into. So,
Okay, thanks, John. Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I'm Addison Smith. I'm on the list representing District 3. I'm a transportation planner, and I've spent the last 6 or 7 years of my career focused on transportation development throughout the state of Alaska. I worked for the Denali Commission for about 5 years and recently transitioned over to Dow. So I'm here. I want to get involved with the transportation planning process for the community and specifically my area, and also represent rural Alaska, as they are a big component or a big part of our transportation system. They travel to Anchorage and participate in a lot of the events here in Alaska, or in Anchorage.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Steele, do you have any particular comments you'd like to make about any person or persons on this
I want to
list?
thank these folks for stepping up. Volunteer effort is probably one of the most valuable things that people have. You only have so much time, and so I have a lot of folks that are willing to step up, and we have some folks with some good backgrounds. So I like the group.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, great group of applicants. Mr. Tolley, good to see you again. And I don't think it's a conflict, but Ms. Smith works at the same firm as my baby sister.
I'll bet she loves that title, doesn't she? Your baby sister?
Yeah.
Not so much.
You guys, the big brother and myself.
I don't think that's disqualifying.
But, and I'm sure you know, Mr. Chairman, I actually went out of my way to try and help recruit for this committee, given that I helped support its implementation, and hopefully it made some difference in getting people out
Good.
to apply, so well done.
Ms. Heil, do you have any comments or concerns on this?
No, I just think it's very exciting that the Citizens Advisory Committee probably has more transportation experience on it than we've ever had, and that the plans and the things that will go through that committee are gonna get some good feedback and scrutiny on that has not happened before from a wide variety of people. And I think that's just gonna make our processes and our plans even that much better.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm just appreciative so many people applied. The slate we have, very impressive. I look forward to getting all the quality input that we're going to get, and I'm very appreciative of the civic participation. So thank you all. And if you're not here, thank you anyway.
Okay. I think I echo most of the sentiments that have been expressed here. Obviously, volunteering for something like this is going to be exciting work. It may not be fun all the time, but I think there'll be some action involved, so that'll be good. I don't know if this is really the right time to bring it up, Mr. Lyon, but I know that we've talked about Mr. Spring before in the past, and he has the opportunity to be in some conflicted positions here in terms of his professional career revolves quite often around things that this organization funds. Have we got some ethics codification that will allow us to make decisions about whether or not it's appropriate for him to vote on things or participate in things based on his professional activities?
To be a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, he had to fill out conflict of interest paperwork to show, where he might have business interests. So we're going to utilize that. I know we have language in our Citizens Advisory Committee bylaws that talk about making sure if there's some kind of conflict that comes up, the ability to remove a member. I don't know that would show up, but he has in the past, when AMATS items have come before Planning and Zoning Commission, recused himself. For the most part, those possibilities for him to vote on something that might impact him would really be on the TIP document, because that's where the funding would come in. The UPWP that you just approved the consultant contracts would not be going to him, and same
I
thing
know
with
you
the
pick on
MTP.
Mr. Spring, he's just the one that I happen to be aware of. I would suspect there's other people on this list that have professional interests that lie in the transportation area, and that's the qualifications we like. But at the same point in time, I just want to make sure that we have internal checks and balances to make sure that we are not put in a position where we have the appearance of impropriety. And that's my question.
And so one of the sessions that I went to at the AMPO conference, the reason I wasn't here last month was a session just on that topic, conflicts of interest and ethical standards, et cetera. And there are several different MPOs that have that kind of paperwork that each member of a committee would have to fill out and sign and agree. If something comes up, they would recuse themselves or they would state a conflict. So we're working on creating that you will see at some point in the future. I will let you know that when the three-person committee that came up with these names looked at all the resumes, we looked at, here's a planner, what kind of area have they worked on in the past and what are they working on now? And to try and make sure their areas of expertise and the areas of interest at work haven't come anywhere near the kinds of stuff that we do. There are 2 engineers that we selected, 2 planners that we selected, and so those are the folks that would probably be closest, and it looked like, from what we could tell, their spheres of influence don't overconnect.
All right, I just want to make sure that we've got something in the works there to make sure that we've got, identified that as an issue and we've got a way to handle it.
Yeah.
I certainly appreciate it, and I don't have any question of the integrity of any of these people on this list. It's not an implication at all. I just want to make sure that we have the appropriate stuff in our own processes so that we're clear as to what we expect and how we expect to handle situations, because they are going to come up. And I don't think that's a reflection on anybody. I just want to make sure that we've got it identified ahead of time so that we don't have to make it up as we go, as they say.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Lyon. Does anybody wish to make a motion? Cindy?
Move to approve the Citizens Advisory Committee appointments.
I'll second. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to your point, this valley does have an outstanding ethics code. We have an outstanding board of ethics. They are happy to review any potential conflict. And, when in doubt, at least disclose.
Absolutely.
And then we, as a body, when we get a document and the minutes associated with it can evaluate whether we think there's an issue that we need to address.
Yep, I agree. I just want to put it out there for discussion now, rather than, like I said, be talking about it later.
Yep.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Do I have any further discussion? Anyone? Any objection to consent on this item? Seeing none, we have approved the proposed list of citizen advisory committee appointments. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate your work in advance of it. We'll try to get you something to do.
That'd be lucky.
Item C, Transportation Improvement Program 2015-18 mod, admin mod number 6. Mr. Lyon?
So you have the memo in front of you and the regular spreadsheet in front of you. We have a few minor changes, thus an admin mod instead of a major amendment. So minor changes in Table 3 roadways and the non-motorized table and the CMAC table. I can go through them off of the memo. That's probably the easiest way. You can see in the memo itself, you'll see that down near the bottom of that table where it says current tip and then draft tip. The changes included moving some monies around to balance, especially O'Malley Road, Abbott Road, and the pavement replacement. Updated the Spinard Road rehab project to reflect the change in the funding source from federal to local bonds. And we, based on the obligation report that we talked about previously, moved the C Street Ocean Dock Road access reconnaissance study from 2015 to 2016. Turning over the next page, those ones need action, that particular, those changes there. The rest of them are for informational purposes only. I guess if you want to take the action first, and then I can go over the informational ones later, or we can go all over at once.
So a point of clarification for me, admin mod is something that we as a board can do that does not require public involvement plans, is that correct?
Yeah, due to the dollar figures.
And what is it called if the TAC takes the action without us having?
It's also an administrative modification, it's just the dollar figures.
Two different levels of admin mod. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Does anybody from the public have any comments on the proposed admin mod number 6 as presented in this memo? Moving to the committee then, Mr. Steele.
I do have an issue with adjusting funding sources on Spinard Road.
So you are referring to taking page 300 to, no, I'm looking at the memo, you're looking at the attached.
I think Mr. Steele's point is we don't have a bonding
Exactly.
authority yet that would justify zeroing this out.
That is my.
I've been doing this for a while.
We'll have to see what happens on it. Obviously, we have not spent the federal money yet, and we consciously are holding off until we see how generous the state is this time around, or the voters, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I guess at this point, are you proposing a modification to this?
I'm proposing not to change the funding source on the Spinard Road reconstruction.
Okay, and that was, I'm sorry, I've lost it in the big sheet here on what?
Page 3.
Page?
Table 3.
Lines on table
It
3.
says line 1 and 2, even though it's written towards the bottom.
Yep, okay, got it.
I think it's these zeros.
Yeah, okay, the 2 red zeros on line 2.
What were they?
It should have all been zeroed out. I see a mistake on there. That whole line should have all been zeroed out for the Spinard Road. Number 2 at the bottom.
So what was in there prior to the zeros being put in there? Was it the,
This is Aaron O'Allen, the AMATS Transportation for DOT. In 16, it was 1.5 million, and 17, it was 1 million.
okay, and so Right now, what we have in front of us then is a proposal to zero it out as approved by staff, and we've got, I believe, Mr. Steele, are you making a motion that
The
we,
total amount's here, but it's the distribution that's different, and I guess I would like to go back to the, I would like to have the 16 money in there, and we see what happens with the 16. We cannot spend it. And,
That'll have impacts on the rest of the modification,
Correct, it
because
will.
they took the money from that project and put it into the other project.
Well, they left it in. There was 4.5 total in there, and there's still 4.5 total in there.
Right, but I'm talking about the year.
yeah, it's got to line up vertically and horizontally.
Well, I may be able to
Oh, please do.
help a little bit here. I mean, I guess I have a question for staff. I have never seen illustrative projects jumping into the tip. And that's specifically Abbott Road and the pavement replacement program. I mean, that's almost stunning. What happened?
Well, typically, I mean, the language at the bottom of each table says the contingency list of projects for each year will consist of the following year's projects. We just have never, I mean, since I've been here very often, has the ability to, have a project up above go somewhere else in a different funding category, the ability to move monies around. It's always been there. It's always an option of saying, that's the contingency list, what's down below, and if you get something done earlier, or find another source of
But
funds.
you've got short-term, long-term, and then illustrative. How do we go from short-term into illustrative and skipped over long-term?
Well, I think in the case of most of the long-term in here, in the tip, those are projects that are already percolating along, maybe in a design phase or PE phase, and those phases have to be, you can't speed those up. They have to finish where they can finish, and then you can pick, in this case, you can pick off to start a new project as it goes. The direction that we've gotten from Public Works is that was where Spenard Road was going. And that's why we made this move to take it out of the federal program. That's the direction we were given.
Well, no, I understand that part, but it's not that specific Spenard project that I'm concerned about. Mr. Steele is, and I'm trying to help him out here.
Thank you.
I'm just confused as to how we jumped from short-term into illustrative and somehow jumped over the long-term projects that were ahead of them in the queue.
I can help with so there's kind of some mix up as to what's going on here. So the MTP has short-term, long-term, and illustrative because those are the categories that were associated. When you see illustrative here, it's not really the same thing as the three short-term, long-term, or illustrative. It's a way to have these projects here in case funding becomes available. So if a project slips and we need to be able to use that funding, to obligate that funding within a year, we need to have something kind of available for it. Abbott Road Phase 2 was already in the tip because in 14 there was a design and right-of-way parent project opened up for the entire segment of Abbott Road, and then it was broken down into two phases for construction. So Phase 1 you already see in here. Phase 2 is being added in as illustrative in case additional money becomes available for it. And then the pavement replacement program is there as well, just to help absorb any of the funds that become available.
So let me add a little bit more to that, is that I think that what we've recognized through painful experience is just because things are in the program and we're working on them, quite often the schedule is beyond our control for various reasons. And so I think these illustrative projects are shock absorber in some cases, in that they're usually paving projects that are necessary projects. They aren't quite as complicated as other projects that involve right-of-way, utility relocations, those types of things. And so they have the ability of being delivered within a year. Things like O'Malley Road, we have struggled mightily with the right-of-way on that for several years now. Various active resistance groups have, stymied us for a couple of years, and we've gotten into individual cases that are more complicated than we had thought. And so O'Malley has bumped down, I want to say 2 or 3 years probably, in the last 5 years. the ability to accelerate Abbott Road sounds great, it's in the list. It sounds like, well, why don't we just move Abbott Road? Well, Abbott Road has got right-of-way issues, it's got other issues involved with it as well. And so a lot of the problem with these things isn't necessarily the priority or the disrespect for the process, it's just the ability to obligate the funds within the year that we have them available. And so I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse, but I think that's the sausage-making process that we're in, if you will. And that's why some of these things that have, in your mind, a higher priority, it's just not a matter of giving them money and having them be done. It's the same struggles that we've got with the other projects is those timelines are just not within our direct control, and so we're kind of at the mercies of other things.
Okay, well, the follow-on to that then is, got a lot of AC in here. What's our balance looking like? If, presuming we approve this as is, how much in debt to our credit card, as Mr. Keith used to say, are we?
I don't know the exact number.
Carried, what was it, 6 or 8 million AC from last year into this year?
Yeah,
I
correct.
don't know if you find the number.
Actually, I confused this. It's Minnesota.
I mean, the big thing I guess to note is that the whole program is balanced. So we're within the allocation amounts for each year. So I don't know how to answer your question.
Okay.
As I recall, the number was somewhere in the magnitude of 6 to 8 million from last year, we AC. Looks like it. I don't remember. But as you recall, we were talking about using that as our balancing point for the end of the year summation, and that we carry that AC as a flexible number so that we can make the total number work at the end of the year. And I recall it was in that range.
We always carry some AC to give ourselves some flexibility.
Right.
I'm understanding of that. So what I think I hear you saying, Mr. Chairman, is that we're using 6 million to 8 million of 2016 federal dollars to run the 2015 program? Or we're 6 to 8 million of 2017 to carry the 2017 program?
Yeah, about 8 million for about 8 million of the $16 for the 15 program.
I think that number's a little high.
Okay, well, let me make a suggestion here then. If, let's not get sidetracked in the details here. If we think that we want to establish a policy on ACs, then let's take that up as an action item independent of specific projects, because I think we get the two things mixed up here. It's a very complicated question. If we philosophically, as a committee, say we want to carry forward no more than $2 million or more than 5 million or 0 or whatever it is, I think that's a great direction to give staff and say, okay, now you've got 9 months to work this into the program, get it done. I don't think it's productive to have this conversation when we're sitting here staring at an admin mod that we kind of have to move forward on. It really complicates things in a hurry.
That's a fair comment, Mr. Chairman. I always try to be cognizant, however, of how much we're putting on credit.
And I know it's an issue of yours, and I would be
Yeah.
glad to put it on the agenda for next month if you care to
Yeah.
move forward a draft motion.
Oh, we're
We will gladly take it up.
Okay. I think it's probably best to do as a percentage of our federal allocation, but that's a different issue.
Let's bring the motion forward and we'll discuss it at that time.
So I'll turn it back over to Mr. Steele.
Yeah,
Mr. Bernard.
I just don't want to see Spinard Road, Hillcrest to Benson disappear and all funding for it disappear. Likewise, the Minnesota to Benson one everybody's been pretty supportive of that, so I'm happy with that. But I would not like to see that funding disappear. Not that I don't have confidence in the voters and the project. It's that strange things are happening around the state monetarily. I'd hate to see the federal money disappear as well.
Mr. Chair, it's probably appropriate to pose to staff what the effect is if we don't make the modification to line 2.
Well, let me just say that where I think it's going to lead us is we're going to have to balance these categories. And so if we take $1.5 million out of somewhere else, we're going to have to decide where that $1.5 million comes from. And we can look at what staff has done and where they took it from originally or added it to and reverse that if we need to. But I think once we start down that path, we are going to be making decisions on where that money comes and goes. So,
Looks pretty simple, the pavement replacement program.
okay? So, Mr. Lyon, can I have any further discussion, or any clarification from Mr. Flynn on what happens if we put $1.5 million in 2016 for this Spinard Road project?
Mr. Nayland, I don't know for sure. Can it absorb that, you know?
I mean, we can do whatever is needed to balance the program. So if you guys want to remove it from it's up to you guys. If you want to remove it from the pavement replacement and put it into that, it's up to you. If not, then we'll use the ACs to balance the program.
Okay, Mr. Berkowitz?
Does the presence or the designation of any federal funds have any consequences for a bond?
My understanding is that we haven't spent any of the federal funding, and so the bond goes forward, and if it doesn't happen, the federal funding is not tainted by the request to the voters.
Yeah, the key thing on this is whether we expend federal monies or not.
If we spend any, then we have to go federal.
And we go the federal
But the simple,
process.
but just designating it doesn't have any,
Not totally created.
No, I don't think so. We've moved monies around in the past pretty easily between state funding, bond funding, and federal funding. The main thing is, once you get into the federal process, then you're obligated to follow that process, and we've been trying to keep this project
On the edge.
out of that process because it really isn't going to work in a federal process. And so to have the federal money there is kind of
It's a security blanket.
I don't know what it is, but I mean, we don't want to go there, but we want the money there, so, you know, whatever we need to do, we can do it. I would still resist strongly spending federal money on this project if it comes down to it, but if you're going to sleep better at night because we've got 1.5 in this column, I certainly am
I would sleep better if we
I'm a
had
believer in
1.5.
good, healthy sleep, so I'm going to help you get there.
Yeah. We haven't done the environmental assessment, and that was the first thing that had to be done. The administration came up with an effort to try to move the project along, and so I certainly appreciate that. We'll see what the voters do.
So, Mr. Steele, since you have initiated this conversation, sir, I would ask that you make a motion to reflect whatever it is you want to do here and put it in front of this body so we can take action on it one way or another.
I'd do it on your behalf if you want.
You can do it on my behalf, go ahead. Otherwise, I might make a mistake.
I'm not sure you're not making one now, but go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
You mean that?
It's almost like you don't trust me, Mr. Mr. Chairman, I will make the motion to restore $1.5 million to the Spinard Road Rehabilitation Project, which is listed as line 2 on table 3 in the year 2016, and $1 million in 2017, making respective deductions from the pavement replacement program, which is not a line number, but the STIP ID is 19497.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'm going to just state the obvious here that there's 1.449 available in 16, and we want to have 1.5, then, so we're off by
1.449 is okay.
1.449, you can live with that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I misstated, I apologize.
Okay. So we'll essentially zero out the 2016 pavement number, move that number into the Spinard Road.
No.
Am I looking at the wrong line?
Yes, you are.
The red.
The red one was the new one, I think.
That's all illustrative funding, so these two items here that you see in red are outside the allocation. So moving funding from there doesn't really.
Okay. Those?
Yeah, use this one. Yeah.
Okay.
So we still, okay,
We
so
zero that.
1.449, zero that one out in pavement
Yeah.
rehab, and put 1.5 down here.
Yep.
Okay. And then the 1.0 comes out of the next one. Okay.
Yep.
I assume you've got excellent notes on that, Craig?
I tried to be as clear.
Okay, we've got a motion, and I think I heard Mr. Steele second it.
Actually, Ms. Heil did.
Oh, Cindy seconded, okay. Any discussion from the crowd, Mr. Tolley?
I would just like to ask, you guys know the bond package a lot better than me at this point. I'm just wondering if having it in the tip as well as in the bond package might create some confusion for the voters, and if particularly someone that may not be crazy about Spenard Road being changed, if that would be an issue at all. I just throw that out there for your consideration there.
Who knows what will be the issue? I think they've certainly heard about and seen about the Spenard Road frustration over the years, and there wasn't any comments as far as I'm concerned about having it in the federal process, and so
Okay.
I don't see a big deal. We haven't spent the money yet, and so.
Yeah, my only concern was if it shows in
Yeah.
some place, someone might make the case that it doesn't need to be in the bond package, don't vote for it or something because it's in the federal program.
Come talk to me.
Anyway, just.
I'll say honest.
Mr. Morton?
Hello, my name is Ken Morton. I work for DOT. From a process perspective, if the effort to advance an environmental document does not start until after the spring election, there won't be enough time to capture the money in 16.
In 16.
Yes.
Every month.
Noted.
Yeah.
Mr. Abbott, did you have something for the body, or?
Just wondering if it would be possible to, if, for instance, the municipality did decide to put it on the bond and sort of cement the assembly and the administration's intent, there might be an opportunity for another administrative modification in December or January that could then reallocate the federal funds in a way that, so that we don't lose the benefit of them in 2016.
We're not leaving.
We'll certainly, I'm sure, be seeing additional modifications to our
That's what I
plan
was
over the
working
next-
with Mr. Lyon to figure
next
out.
9 months, but I recall one of the premises here was Mr. Steele's sleep habits at night.
But I think perhaps Mr.
Or lack
Steele would feel
thereof.
better if the Assembly and the administration had confirmed their intent to actually have a bond measure on the ballot.
I'd feel better if we had it constructed a couple of years ago.
We can't go back.
No,
Yeah, I'll do that.
Back to the future.
Would that I-
All right, does anybody
12
else,
years ago.
anybody else from the public have any other comments on this? Any other, Mr. Steele, any closing discussion points on this motion in front of us to modify the table as so moved?
Thank you. I appreciate a positive vote on this.
Okay. Mr. Flynn? Ms. Heil? Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I don't think I have any additional comments either. I'm going to take roll. Mr. Steele, your vote? Yes. Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Heil?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, also unanimous. Thank you. So, do we have any other proposed modifications to the document in front of us, having made that one modification?
So move to approve modification number 6 of the tip
As amended?
as amended?
Moved? And seconded. Any discussion from the public on the entire package now with the previously moved and approved amendment? Seeing none, any objection to acceptance of this body? Seeing none, that is passed. Thank you. All right, I think that's the heavy lifting for today. Let's take a deep breath. Good.
Justifies my existence.
On to general information, we have a bike plan, ped plan, and area trail plan project update.
Mr. Dean Cars will present.
Good. And Mr. Cars, do you know my 10-minute rule?
Yes, I've been told that a couple times. I gave this presentation to
Thank you. I just
Pat
wanted-
last week, and it's a much briefer presentation.
Excellent. I'm glad you got your coaching.
Yeah. My name is Dean Cars. I'm with Professional and Technical Services. We have a project management contract with PM&E, and the AMATS
non-motorized transportation projects is one of the projects that we are managing. We are the municipality of Anchorage's project manager. This is a project that's being advanced with the MOA DOT involvement of the project team. I was asked to give an update on the project. There are three components: the bicycle plan implementation, pedestrian plan implementation, and Anchorage area-wide trails rehabilitation. The funding for the three projects has been programmed in the 2011 through 14 and 2015 through 18 TIPs. Based on the action that you just took, the previous agenda item, 2018 funds allocated for the bike plan and ped plan have now been moved up to 2017. The bicycle plan implementation project has $2.1 million that's been obligated for design and construction of 9 projects that are currently ready to be advertised. Those will be advertised this winter and constructed next summer. $1.7 million is programmed for 2016 through 18. The $1.7 million is key because, as you'll see, the next phase, the next group of projects, what we're calling the Group 2 projects, the total project cost is estimated at about $3.5 million. So we've had to look at how we can utilize the existing, or the TIP funds to identify which projects we want to move forward with. The Group 2 projects, so if you recall, we had the $3.5 million of projects identified previously. We had the $1.7 million of funding. These are the 4 projects that we're looking to move forward. With the projects that we've identified, Eagle River Road, Pine Street, McCary Street, and Peterkin, that will allow us to construct these projects within that $1.7 million of funding. That leaves us with a balance of about $427,000 that we could then move forward with future projects previously unidentified as far as a specific group. This has been forwarded to BPAC. Last week we made the presentation to TAC as well. Just going backwards a little bit, C Street, Tudor Road, and Mountain View, the top 2 and the bottom project, are not included in the Group 2 projects that we're looking to move forward. The $427,000 of available funding is an estimate. We'll know more once the Group 1 projects are bid, and the Group 2 projects are designed and bid. The pedestrian plan implementation project, we have $1 million in funding for 2014, $200,000 15, and $1.7 million 16 through 18. There was the initial pedestrian plan that was done in 2007. It's been updated. We've performed an initial assessment, or had the consultant perform an initial assessment, and based on the revised cost benefit scores, the top 4 projects that were identified are pedestrian facilities along Patterson Street from DeBar to Chester Court, Petersburg from 56 to 57. Those are the 2 Muni streets. DOT project, or DOT streets, or right-of-way, Boniface Parkway, and A Street. At this time, we're moving forward with Patterson Street from DeBar to Chester Court and Boniface. We are having the consultant move forward with the design study report right now. That will, just one other piece of information. These 2 projects, we don't estimate them utilizing all of the TIP funds. We'll have approximately $800,000 for either Petersburg or A Street, based on how those projects' costs shake out. The area-wide trails rehabilitation, At this time, we're moving forward with the Fish Creek Trail project. We have estimated the total project cost of $2 to $2.3 million. We have $2 million in the tip. We may need to phase the construction of that. We're in the design study phase on this project as well. The project, this map shows if we do have to phase it, there's a section of the trail north of Spinard Road, south of Spinard Road, and there's 4 bridges. So there's opportunities for phasing based on how the cost estimates come out with the design. I think that was about 4 minutes, so I didn't want to shorten.
Nicely done. We'll try to fill in your 10 minutes with questions now. That's your reward. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments for Mr. Carzio on his presentation? Mr. Steele,
Looking for a motion or a comment?
comment. This is not an action item.
Oh, okay, I don't need to make a motion. Fish Creek Trail,
Thank you for
when it
asking.
comes up, I just leaned over and asked our railroad expert here how we get the railroad to approve some kind of right-of-way aspect for Fish Creek down to the coastal trail from Northern Lights.
Did he use the words ex-railroad anywhere in his
He laughed.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have enough time left in our agenda to cover that topic, so let's save it for another day.
Okay.
I have not seen some of the projects in terms of, like the pedestrian plan. What does it include from Devar to Boniface, I think it is, or to the cars? What does that include in terms of the project?
The 5-foot sidewalk on the east side of Boniface, just coincidentally, same on the Patterson project.
Yeah. Okay, just upgrading the sidewalks, taking out some of the cuts perhaps,
Yes,
or?
yes, there'll be some,
modify?
looking at curb ramps, any
Yeah.
drainage that's associated with it. And
So that's, Car Safeway is at DeBar and Boniface.
Yes.
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 So what, is this just between the driveways in that intersection then?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a missing piece.
Okay.
Mr. Flynn?
I actually know these ones.
Okay. Sal? Mayor? Thanks. Can you give us an approximation, and I guess maybe it's in there, but is it mostly reconstruction of existing facilities we're doing, or are we actually, I mean, it sounds like there's one new segment here, fairly small, and is most of the stuff we're doing, though, reconstruction of existing facilities, or are we actually building new facilities in quite a few locations?
On the pedestrian plan, the 2 projects that we have are new facilities. Actually, all 4 of the A Street as well in Petersburg, those would all be new facilities.
All new?
Yes.
And the trail, obviously, when you call it rehab, that pretty means it's rehab. Okay.
I think the key project, Mr. Chairman, is connecting
Connectivity.
the Ship Creek Trail to the Glen Trail through Mountain View. And that's, I thought I saw that on there.
On the bike plan?
Yeah,
Right, that's Mountain View.
yeah,
And you said that was-
Is this the slide you were talking about?
yeah, I think it's,
Everybody's going.
Peterkin to,
Everybody get closer.
I think it's,
Peterkin Street to Meyer to Bun. I think that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the key for east side, sort of North Anchorage bicycle connectivity.
Nice.
right, and those are, on the bike plan, these will be striping and signage, so in-lane,
Yeah.
not necessarily new facilities,
Right.
but, yeah.
Like you heard through.
It'll be the, what do they call them? Little arrow doohickeys like they have on East Street now.
Sheriffs.
Sheriffs.
Okay, thank you. Next on our list, we have an HSIP update.
I believe you know this gentleman.
Mr. Thomas.
Okay. Mr. Lang,
Yeah, hi, I'm Scott Thomas with DOT in the Traffic and Safety section, and
I wasn't, oh, you do have it on PowerPoint. Okay. I was gonna say, I didn't get any, I'm not even sure if I walked out of the office with it on a memory stick. So. I will also pass around these brochures on the highway safety program, and I probably brought about 15 of them. We pass them out at public meetings and transportation open houses, and I can bring more or leave more. First of all, there is a highway safety improvement program. It's a federal program, and it comes with all the federal requirements. Let's see if I can. And I'll take less than 10 minutes, I hope. And but the problem is if there's 10 slides, it will take 10 minutes. We have this all out on the internet, how our program works. And basically the federal rule is to reduce the deaths that are happening in Alaska on roads and even pathways, reduce hospitalization and major injuries. So serious crashes, we have to drive them down. We call that tunnel vision in Alaska. And it's a federal mandate written right into the law, and there's a set of funding set aside to do that. We also keep our eye on the statistics and ask all our projects to do what they can. So we don't just get our work done through HSIP funds. So the red line is Alaska's fatality rate, and the green line is the national fatality rate, and we're getting closer to the U.S. average. We're a small state, so rates are higher here. But we're also doing well in many categories. Train vehicle collisions are near zero, and one of the last places we were looking at was Kodiak Island. We're getting close to zero serious crashes. This is the process we go through internally. It's we submit to, we get ideas from the cities and the boroughs and people that call in. We look at the data. It's by law a data-driven program. We match solutions to problems and send them into Juneau, and then Federal Highways has looked at those historically and approved the ideas for projects. Then you see us as the projects develop. So there is a nomination process, and the calls come in all the time, and also the programs out here on the website. We're at the transportation fairs, and we try to match the requests to the actual data. We're required to come up with a good match, and then we're required to report on how we're doing. This is one of the few spending programs, it's the only one I can think of, where you have to, after you start projects and build them, you have to go back and see how they did with your funding and report back to Federal Highways. Staff put together a chart here of how many crashes are happening in Anchorage. Anchorage is most of the population, it's most of the crashes. We have an urban serious crash problem with angle collisions and pedestrian collisions. And we also have a rural serious crash problem with high-speed head-on collisions, and we're working on them from both fronts. There's two sets of bars here, like the light blue is Alaska serious injuries, and the purple is in Anchorage. Anchorage is a big share of that. And then the red bars is Alaska fatal crashes, and the gray bars on the bottom is how much is in Anchorage. So Anchorage is more of a serious injury share of the statewide total. It's been a program since before I came to DOT. There's staff who did this for their whole career, and we built signals, we built turn lanes around the urban area, we built passing lanes and rumble strips in the rural highway. There's not much more. It's a very difficult system now to do a lot in Anchorage. You don't just add more signals and more turn lanes in the limited right-of-way we have. We do smaller things now that go a long ways, like systematically we change all the pedestrian heads to countdown timers, and that's shown to give people better information. Not only the pedestrian, but even the driver has more info. We've done moose fence recently on Minnesota Drive. We are putting in medians and restricting turns in some areas. We work on railroad crossings so well since the mid-'80s when the state took over crossings that we're almost near zero on train vehicle collisions. We have
more funding than in past decades, and the next couple of years are pretty busy with projects. But we're taking on bigger and bigger projects than turn lanes and signals. We're going around the whole region and putting in high-friction surface treatments. We're treating corridors with medians, corridors with two-way left turn lanes like Jewel Lake Road, and we're widening roads like 36th Avenue from Arctic Boulevard to C Street. We're also out on the rural highway system building passing lanes as a system instead of one here or one there. We're going to try to finish them all. Oops, I think that was the on-off button. Or maybe I don't think that's the end. So we look at all our other projects to see what we can do. There's safety formulas in all the work we do, not just HSIP funding, but formulas and crash data feeds into those. And we look at the shoulders we're putting it on and sight distance and pedestrian requests, and we try to add features as funding allows. We're really concerned about pedestrian crashes in Anchorage, and as we nominate new projects, we have to look at, we're working on ideas with city traffic staff and transit staff. But no matter what we build these days, maintenance is definitely in current budgets the big feature now. We have to save crashes, but we also have to save on public spending after we build it. So there's another factor in every project we think of. We reported to Federal Highways recently, and we're one of the states that gets all of our projects on the street better than most states and gets them built. A lot of states leave their funding on the table. If we left funding on the table, it may go back to those states. In general, there's a statewide strategic safety plan that steers what we do. We can't spend the funding unless it's consistent with this plan. We can't come up with ideas unless it's in this plan. This is the last slide. Is the areas where people are getting hurt the most are these types of crashes or focus areas: pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcyclists, very high. Head-on collisions and run off the road. So there's a steering plan. It's out on the web, and the way we look at the data is through these lenses to see where's the worst of the worst in each of these categories. So I'm not sure what you'd like for an update. Just wanted to give you an overview, and the brochure here is how you can contact us and find out more about it.
Great, thanks, Scott. I mean, to me, this is fascinating stuff, and I'm sure there'll be a few questions here for you, but let me start with the crowd back there and the dim light. I'm still there. Anybody from the crowd have any comments or questions for Mr. Thomas here before we get into the committee? Seeing none. Mr. Steele?
Yeah, yeah, I think you are making progress in terms of, although I do remember we had a motorcycle moose accident on Minnesota, right there where where the fence is there. I think it actually flooded the moose down in there from the overpass area, the breaks and the fences. But you can't get them all. I mean, and you're doing much better on in that neck of the woods than without the fence. So.
Mr. Flint?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions, Scott. First, and not that I've traversed the area a lot, but it seems like the southernmost prepare to stop sign on the Seward Highway as you approach 36th has never been in operation. Am I missing something, or am I correct?
It was designed to come on when the highway backed up even further, and we've had some slick days, and that's kind of goes back to that maintenance question. It was powered, it is powered, but we've also built a lot of improvements. I don't think we're backing up that far at a standstill as often. We've been building a lot of things. Of course, on the slick days, yeah, I think we backed up there. I'd have to look into that with city traffic. We all have to be able to maintain it. That's part of our problem too. With the message board down at Potter's Marsh keeps going out on us. So.
Okay. I mean, it's just a little bit odd to be and I don't commute from the south side
It was meant to, if you have a lot of backed up traffic, to let you know, hey, it's backed up around this corner. And it's one of those things like we can't solve them all or get all the crashes reduced with extra info. And it's better to be building infrastructure to solve that congestion.
Okay. And then I've actually asked this question before, and the answer was no, whether we could use HSIP money for a similar sign on Minnesota as you approach Tudor Road.
Yeah.
Is there non-HSIP money we could allocate to that?
Well, it's governed by the adopted traffic manual and the national traffic manual too, but we have a state traffic manual, and really those signs were intended for unfamiliar drivers who don't drive it every day, and they come in, like, the first signs were put in, you come into Alaska, the first signal you see is in Anchorage, be prepared to stop. Not be prepared to stop for every signal in Anchorage, and so there's a set of rules that says we don't do it for short little freeway pieces that aren't, coming in from the border.
Does the fact that people might say be coming from the airport in a rental car count?
Yeah, it kind of might. I mean, just under current rules, it doesn't qualify, but.
Okay. I still think that'd be a good one, but all right.
Okay. Ms. Heil?
Nothing.
Mr. Mayor, any questions for our HSIP expert?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Presentation, sorry I missed a chunk of it.
There's a
Thanks,
brochure
Scott.
there, thank you.
Always appreciate it. It's interesting stuff. Okay, I think that concludes the informational part of our agenda for today. We are now down to the always potentially interesting and exciting committee comments. Mr. Peterson, since you've been remarkably well behaved today, I'd like to lead off with any closing comments for the benefit of the collection here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comment last month was to pray for good weather so all the projects could get completed. And we needed about 1 or 2 more days to get the project in my neighborhood done. There's people that didn't get their driveways finished, and so when they contact me about that, I'm pointing to send them to the state representatives to complain.
There's always another year.
We'll ultimately end up catching it. You might as well just send them to us to start with. Cut out the middleman. Just send them over to DOT. We'll talk to them. Mr. Steele.
Thank you very much. A lot of stuff on the agenda, good information, and certainly a longer meeting than last time.
That's true. Correct. Mr. Flynn.
Probably because I was here.
Yeah, you might have something.
Okay. It's a good straight line for you, Mr. Chairman. I'll consult with staff on a policy around how we use AC, because I think that's something worthy of our consideration.
Absolutely. I think it's an appropriate thing for us to discuss. Thank you. Ms. Heil, any closing comments? Mr. Mayor? I guess I'd like to say 2 or 3 things. I want to thank all the people that are still here that volunteered to be on our advisory committee. I think that's a great public service that you're about to undertake, and I hope that it's it's a little bit new for us. I hope it's a successful attempt, but I think there'll be some interesting work there for all of us. So I look forward to your participation in that. That'll be fun. Secondarily, kind of building on Mr. Peterson's comments, is we did. Apparently we didn't finish his driveway, but we did finish a lot of work around town. Raspberry Road is now complete across through Dowling. I don't know if everybody's driven it yet or not, but it's been there for, I'm going to say about 3 weeks we've had it open.
Nice.
We didn't open it with a bunch of fanfare, but we're letting people discover it kind of in their own sweet time. So right now, it's been a pretty nice feature. We do have a temporary signal out there at the off-ramp of Minnesota right now, and we'll put a permanent one in next spring. We didn't have time for the permanent one this fall, so those of you that are concerned about the span wire signal out there, it's in the plan, but it won't be there till probably next May. So I think overall, we had a pretty productive year around town here this summer. Next summer, of course, is going to be the Diverging Diamond out in Muldoon. It's going to be a fantastic project. It's going to be really cool. We'll get some updates on that for the committee over the next 6 months. It's going to be really interesting to see how it gets put together, and it's going to be really great when it's done, so we're looking forward to that. So I think those are my comments. We'll have another meeting next month on the 17th, right back here at 1:30. The technical committee will be meeting on the 3rd of December, and I believe they're still meeting over on Tudor Road, is that correct? Yes, sir. Building over there, and that will be at 2:30 on the 3rd. And the Bike and Ped Advisory Committee is meeting on the 1st of December at 6:30. And where's that location?
Right downstairs here.
Here in the conference room on the main
Assembly.
floor. Okay? And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.